It's a nice chat to have on what kind of coach India should be looking for, given the shoes that they need to fill with Rahul Dravid. We've had very different coaches in Ravi Shastri and Rahul Dravid. You, of course, held that position yourself. At this point of time, the Gautam Gambhir's name is being thrown around. What kind of coach should India look for?
I think you need somebody with with a strong demeanor, and you want the continuity to go. Happen right throughout. I mean, Rahul has done a fantastic job. Hopefully for him and for India's sake, he has a swan song here with the World Cup. And you want that continuity. I think, what you also will have to keep in mind is some of the senior players are coming towards the back end of their career. So someone who can go through the transition period and ensure that, India doesn't miss out on the quality and the ability that India has in the batting department, in the bowling department. You'll have to sort of pick and choose and transition through so that, you don't miss out on the quality of some of the great players that this team has.
Names that have been Indian coaches in the last three, counting yourself, Anil, have been people of high profile, and you talk about strong figures. Are there enough viable candidates? Is that a must almost for the Indian cricket team with the stakes involved these days?
Yeah, I think so. I think you need somebody of a strong stature, and also I believe that you need to also develop Indian coaches. We have an opportunity at the IPL where players are being developed. I mean, we have seen the likes of some of these players who've come through the ranks. Of course, the domestic runs or wickets have been really good for some of these players, but in the IPL, they've certainly taken that step ahead. And that's something that you want coaches from India to also get an opportunity in the IPL where they are under pressure. And you would want that to sort of be a feeder into the Indian team, because if you're only looking at big names, then it's not easy to find those names. And ideally, you would like to go with coaches who have the experience, who've been there, done that. And for that to happen, you need to give them an opportunity in this in the IPL.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but as a current player, you don't have the exposure of so many Indian names in IPL dugouts as you do have foreign coaches. You, of course, have worked closely even with the likes of Dennis Lillee. But even with IPL coaches, there seems to be a lot more foreign bowling coaches, batting coaches, even head coaches. Is there space for an Indian, for a feeder system almost of Indian coaches to apply for the big job? Because you can't think of too many candidates right now. Gambhir's name is right up there. There aren't a lot of other Indian names that seem like they'll fit the job.
Look, one of the biggest caveats in the Indian system is that if you have a contract with the BCCI, you can't coach anywhere except the BCCI teams. So that eats up a lot of the best coaches in India. So they can't obviously offer their services for any IPL team. So that's left with a few coaches who are not in the system. So if that could change, then we could see more Indian coaches in the IPL, more bowling coaches in the IPL, which doesn't happen at the moment. But also coming back to the Indian team question, it's important that whoever the coach is up with modern times, because the game's changing at a very rapid pace. And somebody who's played the game recently, for example, a Gambhir, who's been involved in the game recently, who's not retired very long ago, would be a great choice, or somebody of the likes of him who has the stature and who has the recency as well.
What do you think of Gautam Gambhir, who seems to be the front runner with all reports considered, but he's never managed at the domestic level or even head coached for that matter? He's been mentor at a franchise, and this would be a different challenge?
Yeah, it is. You'll have to give him time. He certainly is capable. I mean, we have seen Gautam handle teams. He's been a captain for India, for his franchise, for Delhi. So he has all the credentials to be that. But, Indian team coaching is slightly different. So you'll have to give him time. You'll have to give him time to settle in. And like I mentioned, he will certainly, in case he does take up the job or does get to him, he'll have the task of sort of looking at not just the current lot, but also the future of Indian cricket.
Is there a challenge in a player who's played with a number of the players still playing, becoming head coach, a number of his peers, like a Virat Kohli or a Rohit Sharma? You mentioned transition. Does that make it trickier, or does that make him a better candidate?
No, I think, today you sort of have been a part of the system in some form or the other, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, you've played with them or been associated with the team in some form or the other. So I don't think it certainly matters that much. What you need to certainly look at is the kind of candidature that you're going to pick, and not necessarily go with whether this particular player or this particular coach has had a background of playing with the players and then that sort of coming in the way or not coming in the way. So I think it's important that you need to choose the right candidate in terms of what they can bring to the Indian team, and someone who has the kind of stature and the credibility to handle some of the big matches. And that's something that you need to look at. And I think, today you sort of have been a part of the system in some form or the other, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, you've played with them or been associated with the team in some form or the other. So I don't think it certainly matters that much. What you need to certainly look at is the kind of candidature that you're going to pick, and not necessarily go with whether this particular player or this particular coach has had a background of playing with the players and then that sort of coming in the way or not coming in the way. So I think it's important that you need to choose the right candidate in terms of what they can bring to the Indian team, and someone who has the kind of stature and the credibility to handle certain situations in the game, and someone who takes those calls and not afraid to take those calls.
We know that the coach has. Head coach of the Indian team doesn't necessarily have powers of selecting, but we know there's a strong influence. There will be a change of captaincy as well. One would think sooner rather than later. We may also see different captains for different formats. Is Gautam Gambhir the right man for these kind of big decisions to be taken, even though we know that decision making lies perhaps in the selectorship and secretary's office perhaps?
No, I definitely, we all think and we know that the coach will always have a very strong say in selection. And again, it's still yet to see. We are still yet to see that if it's going to be a coach for all formats or it's going to be a coach for different formats. Even now, there's like an unofficial setup where some coaches get a few look-ins for, say, a Zimbabwe tour or West Indies tour. So there is a bit of role sharing at the moment, but we have to see if the role sharing is going to be more official than unofficial.
Does Indian cricket need split coaching for the formats?
No, I think I certainly believe that it's not easy doing a 10-month job with the Indian team where you're literally on the roll day in, day out, and it's not easy to be traveling so many number of days and be with the team. It certainly gets to you as an individual, so I think it needs to be in some sort taken into account, and then probably prioritize certain tours and say, okay, like Aaron mentioned, is it a stopgap that you're looking for? If it is, then I think you need to also have the larger vision built into this system, and then try and get that person also to follow the same line, because you don't want two different people going in two different directions, because no matter what the format is, you want the Indian team to be going in one direction. And yeah, I think, in terms of white ball cricket or test cricket, you can take a call of making those choices. But if those choices were being considered, then I would have expected that to be prior to calling out for names. So I'm not sure. But
would you advocate for that though?
Yeah, I think it depends on the personnel who sort of gets that call, because at the end of it, every individual is different in terms of handling the pressures of being on the road for 10 months, 3 years on the trot. So it all depends on the individual. You take a call and then go with that, rather than having this preconceived notion that you need two different coaches for two or three different formats.
Workload notwithstanding though, Gautam Gambhir's entire body of work is IPL and T20 cricket. So then you also wonder, okay, what kind of head coach would he be for the test cycle or the test side with big series coming up? Is it tactically wise to have a separate setup, or is that not such a challenge? Because you've seen England do it, or a number of other teams do it.
I think so. I think it all depends on on the management, and you have a chat and then go with the individual, and then have the captain involved, the selectors involved, and then the powers at BCCI involved to have a discussion around who should, how you want to ensure that the progression of one coach, whether he is capable of handling the 3 years, or you want to mix it up with certain tours. You pick and choose the tours because you know pretty well prior, at least with the certain FTPs, you know that okay, the World Cup's coming, the Champions Trophy is coming, the World Test Championships or Test Cricket. So you know the important tours, Australia. So you know all of that, and then say, okay, how do I now build up to all these tours? Is something that I think one needs to sit, not just by the coach, but everyone needs to come together.
Introducing the epic new Swift. Time to go swifting.
वॉचो ऐप पे देखो एक OTT के दाम पे सारे OTT शान से।
Watch